You reading this? Yes, that's you. Now the curtain is coming down on the game. The person who has been plotting silently and slyly is finally being exposed. The name behind all the chaos you've been experiencing, that dark feeling that gnaws at you at night, those energy drops that you can't explain, is finally coming to light. And believe me, this is no coincidence. Nothing that happened to you happened by chance. They targeted you as a chosen one because the light in you was blinding them. But here's the most striking part. There is a woman in this story, the main figure behind the curtain. Her energy, her intention was behind all this, and now the truth is coming out one by one. Now the manipulation is over. Now the curtain is closing. Now the stage is yours. Your rise will be their downfall. 77 in the comments now, because the universe is executing divine justice, and you weren't just a victim. You were chosen from the very beginning. You are the center of this story. Get ready, because now the voice of truth will be heard everywhere. The dark forces working against you have finally been unveiled, their manipulations caught in the act. The one who once believed they had secured a safe path now finds themselves paralyzed by fear so profound it threatens to consume them. The illusion they clung to has shattered completely, leaving behind nothing but the raw truth. The web of deceit, intricately spun and ruthless, now unravels before their eyes. In that moment, the consequences of their actions became unmistakably clear. What they once considered a harmless connection now stands exposed as a nightmare of their own making, a force so toxic, so corrupted, that simply acknowledging it feels like a blow to the soul. At a crucial crossroads, they held their future in their hands. One path led to you, steadfast, grounded, surrounded by divine protection. The other path, shrouded in illusion, promised allure, but delivered only chaos. And they made the wrong choice. Every instinct, every sign, every divine whisper that urged them to turn toward the light was ignored. They disregarded your clarity, laughed off your spiritual insight, and walked away from the purity you embodied. They chose the illusion, the counterfeit, seduced by a reflection of their own wounds, only to realize far too late that this choice would cost them everything. What they failed to see was that this karmic wasn't just harmful, it was dangerous. And now, the truth is out. The person they turned to has been exposed for what they truly are. Someone who actively worked against your peace. Not simply petty jealousy or minor negativity, but deliberate, calculated spiritual warfare. Rituals, dark incantations, and malevolent intent were all part of a grand plan designed to drain you. Their target, you, your energy, your essence, quietly siphoned while you rested under divine protection. But what they never anticipated was this: you are shielded. You walk with forces greater than they could ever understand. God placed an impenetrable barrier around you. Every attack they launched backfired. Every curse they cast was returned to them with devastating force. The very person who thought they could replace you now sits in dread, understanding they didn't just make a poor decision. They became entangled in something far darker than they ever realized. What they thought was a safer option has become a tormenting nightmare. And now, the person who once ignored the divine guidance is left begging for the protection they scorned. You were overlooked, but it wasn't by chance. It was by divine design. While they pursued illusions, God kept you hidden, not because you were unworthy, but because He was preparing something far greater for you. They mocked you, labeled you too spiritual, too sensitive, too aware. But God knew exactly what He was doing. He allowed them to turn away, to walk blindly into the trap they couldn't see. while you remained in his protection. Every slight, every betrayal, every time they chose falsehood over truth was part of a higher plan, one that would ultimately expose their errors. If you feel the abundance of divine love in your heart, now is the time to share it. You can help spread God's blessings by clicking the super thank you button on YouTube and contributing $20 or more. This divine gift will touch not only your life, but the souls of many through this platform. Each of you has a sacred place in God's grand design, and your generosity will be the fruit of our prayers. Act now. Share your blessings to glorify His kingdom. For you were created to do even greater things in God's loving hands. May God bless you. It was painful. You questioned your worth. You wondered if your insight was too much, if your discernment was too sharp for this world. But in the silence, God was at work. He allowed their rebellion to grow until it became impossible for them to ignore the consequences of their actions. You didn't need to retaliate. You didn't need to prove anything. God was building a case, and now those who mocked your wisdom are watching as their world unravels. The one who left you? They're witnessing the consequences of their choices, realizing they've been led into a trap they couldn't escape. The karmic didn't just fail to replace you. They destroyed their own spiritual foundation by trying to compete with your divine path. They tried to replicate your energy, to steal your essence, to wear your light like a mask. But divine order does not allow such counterfeits to prosper. While they resorted to dark rituals, you embodied true spiritual elevation through prayer. Now, their efforts are crumbling, while your peace rises, unaffected. You stayed aligned, even when the world seemed to reject you, even when the pain was unbearable. Your stillness became your strength, your surrender, your victory. And now, heaven is declaring you were never discarded. You were preserved for a time such as this. If you feel God's presence, you can tap the join button below to become part of the first chosen ones and receive the most important revelations early. Imagine a lighthouse standing steadfast on a rocky shore during the fiercest of storms, its beam cutting through the darkness, unwavering and brilliant. Just as that beacon guides wandering vessels safely home, your divine purpose shines ever brighter amidst a world mired in confusion and false promises. Let them witness as the very foundations of their crumbling world collapse around them. They chose to wander in darkness, seduced by a false idea of passion, mistaking it for genuine desire. Now, having bathed in the brilliance of true light, they scramble in desperation for the very radiance they once scorned. The Almighty permitted them to overlook your truth so there could be no dispute about who was truly favored. While some souls awaken gradually, stirred by soft, gentle reminders and tender moments of introspection, this particular individual remained ensnared in their deceptive fantasies. They were too deeply immersed in illusions, captivated by a darkness that pretended to be enchanting beauty. Instead of receiving a quiet urging from above, they experienced a seismic shaking of their very being. The subtle curtain of deceit was violently torn away, revealing a truth so stark and formidable that it left them trembling in awe and terror. Their misguided pursuit did not merely fail, it dismantled their entire spiritual edifice. In their futile attempt to mirror your divine essence, they endeavored to steal your light and even mimic your identity. Yet the hand of God never permits counterfeit souls to prosper. While they resorted to hollow theatrics and empty rituals to manipulate, you uplifted your spirit through the pure, unadulterated power of prayer. Now, as their intricate spells of deceit crumble into dust, your inner peace rises steadily, much like the gentle wisps of smoke ascending from a battlefield you never even set foot on. You maintained your sacred alignment, even as the pain roared like a tempest and the sting of betrayal cut deeply, as if a sharp blade had been driven between your ribs. Your quiet resolve became your greatest weapon, and your surrender transformed into an invincible shield. Heaven has declared with unwavering certainty that you were never cast aside. Instead, you were safeguarded and nurtured, for the storm had to subside before the grand feast of blessings could be laid out for you. Now, let them watch as the fruits of their own decisions come crashing down. They ventured into the shadows, convinced that their path was one of desire, only to find themselves desperately clawing for a light they once derided. The divine hand allowed them to disregard your radiance, so that, in the end, there would be no question of who was truly anointed. Many awakened quietly, guided by the soft murmur of truth and the still, small voice of introspection. But this individual was too enraptured by delusions, too seduced by the deceptive glamour of darkness masquerading as a lure. Consequently, the Lord did not merely whisper his truth to them, he shook the very core of their being. The false veil that had long obscured their vision was not lifted gently, it was ripped apart with a force that left them staring, horrified at the barren landscape on the other side. Their journey into deception not only led them astray, but also eroded the very essence of their spirit. They sought to replace your authentic presence with a counterfeit, a pale imitation crafted from their own wounded soul. In doing so, they shattered the sanctity of their inner world. As they clung to their misguided attempts, every ritual and every incantation they performed came back to haunt them. They tried to harness a power they never truly understood, believing that by imitating what you embody, they could capture your brilliance. But divine truth is not something that can be faked or forced. While they labored with dark rites and hollow practices, you embraced the luminous gift of divine connection, letting your spirit soar on wings of prayer and unwavering faith. Now, their elaborate constructs of manipulation disintegrate, and your peace, so genuine and profound, rises imperiously, untouched by the chaos that once surrounded you. As the full magnitude of their error dawns upon them, they can no longer hide behind the facade of false desire. The very elements they once thought were alluring have revealed themselves as instruments of torment, each one a stark reminder of the price of their miscalculation. The darkness they embraced now binds them in chains of regret, and every moment they spend in its grasp intensifies their suffering. They are left to grapple with a chilling truth, that the path they chose, under the guise of passion and desire, was nothing more than a perilous detour into the abyss. In this moment of profound reckoning, you stand as a beacon of truth and redemption. Your unwavering light, born of divine favor and nurtured by an unshakable faith, stands in stark contrast to the crumbling ruins of their misguided journey. You never wavered, even when the pain was unbearable. You held fast to your sacred purpose, trusting in the Lord's plan even when it seemed the world had turned its back on you. And now, as their deceptions are laid bare and their spiritual foundations disintegrate, it is clear that you were destined for greatness all along. You were not discarded or forgotten. You were being prepared for a destiny far greater than anything they could ever imagine. So let them watch as their choices bring forth their downfall. Let them see the consequences of their abandonment of truth, as the very power they once sought to wield against you now consumes them from within. Their false empire, built on deceit and desperate longing, is crumbling rapidly, and there is no escape from the retribution that has been set in motion. Their every action, every whispered lie, every deceitful ritual has come back to claim its due. The time has come for the truth to stand unchallenged, a truth that declares you are the chosen, the one anointed by divine favor, and that the darkness they embraced will forever remain in their wake. In the light of this divine revelation, you rise, not as a victim, but as a victor, carrying the strength of the heavens in every step you take. Your journey, marked by resilience and sanctified by the love of the Most High, has led you to a place of unassailable power and peace. And now, as the remnants of their failed endeavors crumble away, your destiny shines clear and brilliant, a living testimony to the eternal promise that those who walk in the light shall never be overcome. The evil they once justified is now fully exposed, and they can no longer deny the truth. They thought they chose excitement and freedom, but what they chose was a trap. The person they became addicted to wasn't someone they loved. They were addicted to the power, the flattery, the obsession. And now, God has let that addiction turn bitter. The peace they once sought has fled, and every moment in the presence of the karmic feels like spiritual torment. What they once craved now makes their skin crawl. They are not mourning a lost love. They are panicking over a choice that led them into spiritual captivity. Dear brothers and sisters, may God's peace be upon you today. I am here to remind you of a profound truth. Our existence is grounded in God's divine plan, unshaken by the temporal concerns of the world. As the Bible says, whatever is done in faith will return to God in abundant blessing. Luke 6:38. Like that great oak tree, our roots are deeply rooted in God's universal truth. Every step we take, every stand we take, is secured by His strength. And now, you are being offered the opportunity to be part of that blessing. When you use the Super Thank You button and donate $100, this movement will return to you 100-fold in abundance. This isn't about heartbreak. This is about the breaking of a soul. They didn't listen to the quieter warnings, so God had to use fear to awaken them. The truth wasn't gently revealed. It was violently exposed. They didn't shed tears in quiet reflection. They are gasping for air in spiritual panic. What they once found beautiful now terrifies them. This isn't love unraveling. It's the breaking free of a spirit that was once trapped. They thought they could keep their false connection hidden, but the truth has come to light, and now they are spiraling. Every decision they made has turned against them. Their energy is now fractured. The darkness they welcomed into their life is eating away at them. They cannot sleep, they cannot rest, and every moment spent near the karmic feels like a countdown. They are living with the consequences of their choices, and those consequences are not just emotional, they are spiritual. Now, they face divine justice, not because of your retaliation, but because God fights for you. Their manipulations, their lies, their curses, every attack they launched against you has boomeranged, tearing through the very life they tried to build. And the karmic? They are unraveling fast, their charm and control slipping through their fingers. The once perfect facade has cracked, and their true nature is spilling out for all to see. The lies, the manipulations, they're all exposed, and they cannot stop it. They thought they could replace you. They thought they could steal your power. But now, they see that your power wasn't surface level. It's rooted in your divine inheritance, your spiritual lineage. The karmic tried to hijack your essence, but it is you who has been chosen. Every effort they made to break you only made you stronger. your peace, your wisdom, your light. These are the forces that are now shaking their world to its core. What they tried to destroy has become the very thing that elevates you. And now, they must face the consequences of their choice. There is no escape. The spiritual war they engaged in is now consuming them from the inside out, and they know it. The dark forces aimed at your destruction have finally been exposed, their deceit laid bare for all to see. The karmic energy that once seemed so convincing now crumbles under the weight of its own maliciousness. The one who trusted in this toxic connection is now paralyzed with fear, realizing the depth of their misstep. What they believed was a safe and comfortable choice now stands as a cruel illusion, a snare carefully woven around them. Their once confident belief in the righteousness of their decision now seems like an irreversible error. The bond they once saw as a blessing has turned into a nightmare they can barely comprehend, a force so destructive it has shattered their very perception of reality. If you feel God's presence, you can tap the join button below to become part of the first chosen ones and receive the most important revelations early. At a pivotal moment, they were given a choice, a fork in the road. One path led toward you, where truth, light, and divine protection awaited, while the other path led into the shadows, enticing yet ultimately hollow. They chose the wrong one. Ignoring the clear signs from the divine, the warnings that echoed through their mind, they opted for the illusion. They laughed off your wisdom, dismissed your gifts, and mocked your spiritual depth. Instead of seeking the light, they embraced something that mirrored their own brokenness, something designed to feed their ego while drowning them in spiritual deceit. But what they failed to realize is that this wasn't just a toxic choice, it was a deadly one. And now they're faced with the irreversible consequences. What they didn't see is that this karmic force wasn't just harmful, it was a predator. The mask of falsehood has finally been ripped away. The one they ran to has been caught in the act of using dark rituals and manipulations, not petty gossip or minor jealousy, but real spiritual warfare. Candles, symbols, and dark rituals meant to siphon energy and control. And you, your very essence, was the target. Your spirit, your energy, were being attacked in silence, while you remained protected, shielded by divine grace. But they never expected this. You were protected. You walk under divine cover. God placed a shield around you that no darkness could penetrate. Every spell they cast, every curse they aimed at you, turned back on them. They thought they could replace you, but now they sit in the pit of their own creation, realizing that they didn't just make a poor decision, they aligned themselves with forces far darker than they could have ever imagined. What they once considered a better path has now turned into a living nightmare. And now, the person who rejected divine guidance is left begging for the protection they once scorned. You were hidden, not by chance, but by divine strategy. While they chased fleeting illusions, you were being prepared for something greater. They mocked you, called you too intense, too spiritual, too aware, but God was orchestrating this moment. He allowed them to turn away, to blindly step into a trap they couldn't see, while you were protected and hidden for a purpose. Every dismissal, every betrayal, every time they chose the false over the real, it was all part of a greater plan, a plan that was now coming to fruition. It hurt. It made you question your worth, your purpose. You wondered if your insight was too much, if the world wasn't ready for your light. But in the silence, God was working. He allowed their rebellion to build until it could no longer be ignored. You didn't need to fight back. You didn't need to prove anything to anyone. God was building his case. The very people who mocked your wisdom are now living through the consequences of their actions, and the one who left you. They're watching as their world unravels, realizing they made the worst decision of their lives. The karmic didn't just fail, they collapsed their own spiritual foundation in the attempt to replace you. They tried to duplicate your energy, to steal your essence, to wear your light like a costume. But divinity doesn't work that way. While they dabbled in dark rituals, you embodied true spiritual strength. Now their efforts are falling apart, while your peace rises like smoke from a battlefield you never had to step foot on. You stayed aligned with the divine, even when betrayal cut deep, even when the world seemed to reject you. Your stillness became your strength. Your surrender became your victory. And now God has spoken. You were never abandoned. You were preserved because the storm had to pass before your blessings could arrive. Let them watch as their world disintegrates. Let them witness the unraveling of their own choices. They walked into the shadows, believing it was desire they were chasing, only to realize they had fallen into a trap. Now, they're crawling back, begging for the light they once mocked. God allowed them to overlook you, so there would be no question who was truly chosen. While some awakened gently, this person was too lost in the illusion, too fascinated by the darkness disguised as beauty. So God didn't whisper softly. He tore the veil from their eyes. The truth wasn't revealed gradually. It hit them with the force of a lightning bolt. And what they saw on the other side was pure terror. Now is the time to share God's blessings by clicking the super thank you button on YouTube. You can contribute to his plan and be a part of this divine mission with a donation of $100 or more. Every gift reflects God's generosity, and I believe it will return to you exponentially, far beyond your expectations. Remember, his protection and blessing is on your every step and every donation. You become part of his divine plan. You are a strong, radiant being, unshakable as his mighty rock. Witness God's miracles, feel the fruits of your generosity in your soul, and illuminate the world with confidence and courage. Be blessed, and let the light of the Lord guide your path. The evil they once justified now stands exposed in its full, grotesque reality. They thought they had chosen excitement, adventure, and freedom, but what they had chosen was a trap, carefully disguised in charm. They became addicted to the attention, the flattery, and the false sense of power. But now, that addiction has turned sour. Peace fled their body. Rest became impossible. Every moment spent in the presence of the karmic feels suffocating. What once drew them in now repels them, radiating malevolence instead of warmth. This is not love falling apart. It's a soul escaping from the chains that bound it. The karmic isn't mourning what they lost. They are terrified of what they allowed. The rituals, the strange chants, the eerie energy. They now realize it was all part of the deception. But it's too late to undo the damage. God made sure they saw the truth, not just heard it, but witnessed it firsthand. And now, they are unraveling from the inside out, their world crumbling as they face the very forces they thought they could control. If you feel God's presence, you can tap the join button below to become part of the first chosen ones and receive the most important revelations early. This wasn't just heartbreak, it was spiritual destruction. Chains that were meant to bind their soul have snapped, violently pulling them into a confrontation with their own darkness. God used fear to shatter the illusion that had blinded them. The awakening wasn't subtle, it was primal. They didn't cry in reflection. They gasped for air in spiritual panic. And now, they know. This wasn't a mistake. It was a descent into darkness that they never intended to make, but they did. And now, God is the only one pulling them out of it. They thought they could escape the truth, but now, the karmic is spiraling. Every lie, every manipulation they used against you is now turning against them. They're losing control, watching everything they built collapse. The mask they wore is now falling apart, revealing the chaos beneath. What they once dismissed as drama is now their lived reality, and the karmic they defended, the one they chose over you, has become their own personal hell.